In the previous episode, Qing stayed overnight at the main character's new home. The next day the vice president of Baba made an appointment for him, and they happened to meet when she called for a cab, but when she wanted to pay for the cab, then the Baba app gave an error. Then Lin and Tian came to Baba's office and Tian fired the two executives for blocking Lin's account. Jing called Lin and told him that it was her grandfather's birthday tomorrow and she wanted to buy new clothes tonight. She asked him if he should buy something too. Lin agreed with her and said he would pick her up tonight. Lin also wanted to buy her grandfather a birthday present, but wanted to buy him an antique or a piece of painting. Tian came up to him and said they solved his problem. His account was unlocked and he was given higher authority. He asked in surprise, could the driver have different authority? She said that these are just extra functions. One of them is that passengers can make an order by giving his car number and he can decide to pick up the passenger or not. Lin was surprised because this function would be very useful to him. He told her that an old man he knew was celebrating his birthday and he asked her if she knew where the best antiques or works of art were for sale. She offered him a painting by a famous 20th century Chinese painter. Lin was shocked and asked her if she could get a painting by Zhang Daqian. Tian said they had bought a painting by Zhang Daqian before and if he wanted his painting she would immediately send an assistant to get it. He asked her how much he should pay for it. But Tian said she would never take money from him and asked what address to send the painting to. Lin told her to send the picture to the Bandao Hotel and give it to the manager. Lin told her that he didn't like to be indebted, and said he would exchange the picture for 1% of his shares and that should be enough. 1% of shares is at least 500 million yuan. She said Lin was too generous. Lin was about to leave, but Tian said their director wanted to invite him to Yanqing as a guest. He agreed and said he would contact her a little later. Lin wondered, because it had been a long time since he was at the orphanage in Yanqing and he wanted to make his time to go there. Lin started taking orders again and he was getting 5 stars. He got a notice that he had one last order left and his assignment would be completed. He got his order and wandered to his hotel Bandao. A girl named Tianxin called a cab. She was talking to her husband by phone. She said she was coming to the hotel soon and she bought a lot of new lingerie. If he behaves well she will show him. When Lin arrived she was very surprised and didn't believe he was a cab driver. She got in the car and said it was a good marketing move from the company, but he said it was his personal car. Tianxin said that a person with a lot of money would never work as a cab. Lin was upset and did not want to answer her because he had to fulfill an order. Suddenly Lin turned off the route and she was scared and thought he wanted to abduct her, but he said it was a shortcut because he is a frequent guest at the Bandao Hotel. She started yelling at him and accusing him of kidnapping, but he didn't care, but at that moment he saw that she had bought underwear and went to the hotel. Lin felt something was wrong. And when he brought her to the side entrance of the hotel and his suspicions were confirmed. He decided to go to Qing since he didn't expect Tianxin to give him 5 stars. After he brought Qing to Times Square he asked her in surprise why she didn't give him 5 stars. Qing said she would look at his behavior and only after that would she give him 5 stars. They went into the mall and she saw her favorite store where she buys her under. Lin was happy because now she could fulfill her promise. They went into the store and after a few minutes Qing said they had to leave and she did not want to buy anything. Lin thought she just did not want to do his errand and told her if she doesn't buy herself a swimsuit, he'll buy her himself. Qing went over to him and whispered that there is no right size. But the saleswoman heard that and said that the store has sizes A, B, C, D. Lin told her, so they don't have size E. Qing was embarrassed and ran out of the store, and Lin suggested she go to a nearby store because it's also a pretty famous swimsuit brand. When they got to that store Lin was stumped and didn't want to go anywhere. But Qing pulled him out and said they weren't swimwear. They went into the next store and the saleswoman showed them all the swimwear available. Qing chose the closest one and said it was very cute and wanted to buy it. But Lin was not happy and said that this swimsuit didn't show all her charms. So he chose the black swimsuit and said that this particular one suited her better. She had to buy the black swimsuit and suddenly Lin took the first swimsuit that Qing chose. She asked him surprised because he didn't like it. Lin said that the one he liked could only be worn when he was around and the one she liked, she could wear it when he wasn't around. After they bought the swimsuits, Qing suggested he go to the 4th floor as there are some exclusive clothing brands there. Once they got to the 4th floor she saw a dress that was part of the new collection and Qing wanted to try it on. After a while she asked Lin for help to help her get the dress on. He came up to her and was extremely surprised as this dress was too open. Lin saw that she was without a bra and asked her was she sure she was a size E because she looked like a size F. He really liked the dress and decided to buy it. The saleswoman said it looked like it was made especially for her. A girl was in the store with her man and she really liked the dress Qing had just bought and the man asked the saleswoman for another one. But the saleswoman said it's a new model and there's only one copy. Zhang angrily told Qing to take the dress off because they can't afford to buy it. Qing asked them if they were sure about their words. The girl said that this model costs more than 80,000 yuan and she definitely can't buy it. Qing laughed at her and said she could buy this dress, unlike her, and called her a kept woman. Zhao said he would add 20,000 yuan to buy this dress but the saleswoman said that's not allowed. At this point Lin said that in that case he would add another 20,000, he said that this dress would not fit his girlfriend's size because she is a board. The saleswoman turned to Zhao and said he was ready to order the same dress especially for his girlfriend, but he said he didn't need anything anymore and he changed his mind about buying. Qing told him sticking up for her, she'll let him enjoy her company tonight. They went to buy him a suit and when she saw his figure she was surprised and thought he wasn't missing out on sports. Qing told him that the suit fit him perfectly and said they should go since all the girls are staring at him hungrily. After a while they returned home and Lin was sunbathing. At that moment Qing put on a new swimsuit and Lin was shocked by her beauty. Qing was also surprised when she saw his beautiful physique. He asked her, does she enjoy watching? Lin said, and who will enjoy who today? Qing was embarrassed and took her gaze away from him. She sat down by the pool and said she kept her promise and put on her swimsuit. He swam up to her and looked her straight in the eyes. He said he liked honest people. Then they decided to swim together. She hugged him and yelled for him not to let her go as she can't swim. Lin told her that he could teach her to swim. He told her that he needed to gently let her go first, but at this point she grabbed even tighter and he asked, doesn't she believe him? Qing replied that she probably didn't believe in herself. After a while she tried to swim on her own, without his help, but just a few seconds later she started to sink. Lin quickly dived after her and pulled her out of the water. She hugged him and kissed him, saying that with him she was not afraid of anything. He was happy to hear those words, since no one had ever told him that before. A little later they came home and she was taking a shower. He asked her if he could use her phone and she said yes and gave him her phone password. Lin gave himself 5 stars through her phone and at that moment Wei appeared and informed him that the system task had been completed and he received 100,000 skill points. Also his career was 75% complete and as a reward he got the port of Wanjiang. He couldn't believe it because he just got the second largest cruise ship port in China. Wei said he was already 75% complete and he was not that far away from his next career. Qing got out of the shower and apologized for that she never learned how to swim, but suddenly she saw an old blanket. Lin said that this blanket and pillows were brought from the orphanage. He got used to them and didn't want to throw them away. Qing told him that she didn't know that he was an orphan. He said that Mama Wang told him that when he was born, he was left in an orphanage and grew up there. Qing apologized to him for reminding him of that, but he replied that she had no reason to apologize, because he was not sad at all. Because when he was little, Wang's mother took care of him and treated him like her own son, and he also had many friends at the orphanage. After 10 minutes, Qing said it was time for her to go to bed and asked her to take him to work tomorrow morning, and after work they need to go to Grandpa's birthday party. Suddenly in the night he got a call from Wang's mom and he wasn't expecting it. She told him that Lu Susi had told her about them breaking up and she asked her to talk to him. He answered her, because she had watched him grow up and didn't she know what kind of character he had. She said he was still as stubborn. She had a friend whose daughter was about the same age as him. She asked if he could find time to meet her tomorrow. Lin said of course he could meet her, he couldn't refuse her, he promised to visit her in a few days when he had time. Mama Wang said she had arranged to meet her at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning at Tianyuti house and that girl's name was Sun Wenhui. Lin thought that Lu Sisi herself was asking for trouble. The next day Lin arrived at the appointed place and asked if they had a reservation under Sun's name. He was told that Mrs. Sun asked him to go to the 3rd floor. Wenhui's mother met him upstairs and said that her son and aunt had come with her. She said she had heard that he worked for a real estate company and he could help them find a cheaper house. Lin said he doesn't work there anymore and now does his own business. She asked then what does she do since he's not homeless. Lin replied that he is now working as a cab driver at Baba and barely has enough money to live on. She was very holla at Wang as she said something completely different. At Sun asked not to worry because although he doesn't have a very good job, he looks good and offered to talk about the fact that the orphanage wants to be torn down. Mom said that her daughter works in a bank, so she hopes that he can buy a house with full payment in Zhonghai. Sun told him if he really likes her then it shouldn't be a big problem for him. Lin laughed and asked if they have any requirements beyond that. He was told that they are an ordinary family and won't put too much pressure on him, and the bride price will be 8,700,000 yuan. Lin was surprised to hear that amount and asked if that was too much. He was told that her daughter's colleague got married a few days ago and got 16,600,000 yuan. He asked them isn't that the same as selling his daughter? But they got mad at him and he told them not to worry, asking what more did they want. His son told him to buy an imported car worth more than 500,000 yuan. Lin answered them that with their demands he should give 10 million yuan. He asked them, do they really think he has that kind of money? She asked him why doesn't he ask his parents for help. Lin asked angrily, should he ask his dead parents for help? She became very embarrassed. Her son told him that everyone is evicted from the orphanage, then sell the plot, and he doesn't even have any money. Lin became even more angry and told him not to even mention the orphanage. He said he wanted to pardon him but he dared to touch the place where he grew up. He went outside and her son was very angry at him for pouring hot tea on him. He wanted to wait for a moment and throw the flower pot at him. Lin went to the car and he threw the flower pot at him but it didn't hit him and it fell right in front of his feet. He shouted at him to get out of here or he'd kill him. Lin looked at him seriously and said does he realize that the consequences of what he just did could be very serious. Although the pot didn't hit him, it hit his car. Lin asked them how they were going to pay for fixing his car now. Upon hearing this, they were shocked. He immediately went downstairs and asked if it was his car. Lin told him that the original price of this car was 28 million yuan and the paint job would cost almost 2 million. He asked how he was going to pay. Sun went up to him and asked him to forgive him for her brother and now she was ready to give him a second chance. But at that moment he pushed her away and told her to get lost with her brother and told them that if he didn't get the 2 million within a week he would sue them. Lin left and her mother slapped her daughter and told her that she was useless for not even being able to hold a man. Her brother told her that she should have realized right away that Lin was on the money and told her that now she needed to find 2 million yuan. After a while, Lin arrived at the port of Wanjiang was surprised to see a lot of people in fancy cars there. He saw a girl come up to Mao's manager and tell him that she accidentally broke the seat on the boat. But she didn't do it on purpose and asked for help to solve the problem. Mao said it would not be easy because the seats are made of leather and they are very expensive. She said she is a little internet celebrity and she doesn't have the money to pay for a leather seat. He told her to come to his office today and he will solve the issue. Lin came up to them and asked how he was going to solve it. Mao replied that it was none of his business, after all he was the manager of this place and only he would decide who would pay for what. Lin told him if the girl would not pay for the seat, he would pay for it himself. Mao was surprised and said he would not let this girl pay with money. He asked him who was he to talk to him like that anyway. Lin ignored him and went to the port office. The girl told him that Manager Bai was waiting for him eagerly in the conference room. Entering the room he was told that all the executives were waiting for him to be there. Lin said that apparently it was an incomplete set of executives and managers. Bai answered him that Manager Mao was now missing and was probably too busy so he was a little late. Lin said he was in no hurry and would wait for him until he arrived. Bai told the girl to find Manager Mao immediately. 5 minutes later Manager Mao came running into the meeting and was shocked when he saw Lin and asked if he was the new chairman of the board. Lin slapped the table and said, "Now does he understand who he is?" Mao got down on his knees and started apologizing to him. He asked him for a second chance. Lin said it was too late to ask for forgiveness and told the guards to take him out. He started the meeting and said he had just looked around the area adjacent to the pier and realized there was still a lot of room for development because he wants to modernize the port and hopes that all the leaders and directors will come up with a plan of action. One of the leaders asked him, because just Wang Jiang is already one of the best in the country and there is no need to modernize. But Lin said that this port should be the best, and he wants to turn Wangjiang port into the biggest marina in the world. He said he is ready to provide money for the renovation, and in addition, the salaries of ordinary employees will be increased by 20% and the salaries of all managers by 10%. After a while Lin left the office and Manager Wang wrote to him. He texted him about someone sending him the painting. Suddenly he got a call from Patek Phil and was told that his watch that he ordered 3 days ago had arrived and he could pick it up now. But Lin was not on time, because after he picked up the picture, he would go straight to his grandfather's birthday party and told them to send the watch to Zhuzhou. He was told that since the watch was too expensive, they had to deliver it to him personally. Lin told them to send it to Dunhu Villa. After picked up the picture he arrived at Dunhu Villa and there Qing was waiting for him in her new dress. She asked not to look at her that way but Lin told her that that part of her body stood out a little and it was hard for him to ignore. They went into the villa and Qing apologized to Grandpa for that they were a little late. The grandfather's name is Yun. Yun replied that this was the first time she had brought a guy home and asked her to introduce him. Suddenly the girl who Lin had recently dropped off at the Bandao Hotel to the back of the hotel recognized him and said that Qing had fallen too low that she started dating a cab driver from Baba. Cyaxin came up to Grandpa and said that this guy is an ordinary cab driver and recently he gave her a ride in a company sports car, and said that this is his personal car, and he also tried to seduce her. Qing became very ashamed and asked what kind of nonsense she says. Grandpa was very angry and asked what it all meant. Qing said that it really is her boyfriend's personal car and he works at Baba for experience. Jianxin asked her, is she really that stupid? After all, rich kids do nothing but go to clubs and how can Lin be a cab driver in that case? At that moment, Sister Qing said there was no point in fighting and it was better to go and check whether he was a liar or not. Qing didn't expect that from her sister. Jianxin hugged her new boyfriend and said that he was a commissioner at Baba. His name is Jinping. He said that last month Baba introduced a high-end car calling service. If Lin is an ordinary driver and he cheated the girl, he will notify the head office so they will investigate the matter immediately. The sister was disappointed and said she did not expect Qing to be cheated so easily. Father asked her in anger, what the hell is happening now? Qing said she would explain everything now, because Qing is not a liar. Grandpa said Lin should leave here, because he is not welcome here. But at that moment, managers from Patek Phil came and asked if Mr. Lin was here. He said he was here. She handed him a 175 model watch and asked him to sign. When his sister, Tianxin, and her boyfriend saw this watch, they stood up as it was the most significant Patek Phil 175th anniversary watch. Jinping said that the value of this watch was over 17 million yuan. He didn't understand how Lin could buy it for himself. Tianxin said in surprise, "Were they wrong?" Grandpa told Tianxin that they were mistaken and told them to apologize to Lin. Auntie said that it was just a misunderstanding, and why would they apologize? After all, she is sure that he just likes to flaunt his wealth and he doesn't care about Qing. After all, he will leave her in a few days anyway. Qing asked her auntie what this means, and is she not able to admit her mistakes? The aunt said she thought the watch was a gift for Grandpa, but Lin put it on herself and she doesn't see any other gift. Obviously he doesn't care about Qing. Tianxin said her mom was right, because their family started preparing gifts for Grandpa a month ago and told her boyfriend to show everyone their gift for Grandpa. They gave him copper coins from Qing Dine. He said he spent a lot of effort to collect them and the current price is more than 2 million yuan. Qing became very embarrassed and said that Lin also prepared a gift for grandfather, and pulled out a green ring. Tianxin told her that her boyfriend drives a car for more than 20 million yuan and wears a watch worth 10 million yuan, and how dare he give grandfather such cheap stuff. Grandpa said that it didn't matter, because Lin had also tried. Lin walked up to Qing and told her that it was a gift that she had prepared from herself and shouldn't help him. She asked him in surprise, what was he talking about? Lin asked her why he would ask them. After all, he had prepared a gift for Grandpa himself. It would be rude to come here empty-handed. He held out a canvas and told Grandpa that he hoped he would like his gift. He unrolled the canvas and saw a picture called Peach Spring by the great artist Zhang Daqian. Jinping couldn't believe it and said that this painting was worth at least 200 million yuan. Tianxin asked Grandpa if he thought that this painting is worth 200 million yuan because he doesn't see anything special in it. He said that it was a genuine work by Zhang Daqian and ordinary people can't see the meaning in it. Jinping told Grandfather that he was mistaken because the owner of this painting is the general manager of Baba where he works, and he was once offered $230 million, but Mr. Qing Shuang refused, and it turns out that this painting his hands is a fake. Tianxin was amused, because she didn't expect Lin to deceive people this way. Qing looked at Lin and said that he was not capable of such an act. Lin thought about it, because they had only just met and Qing was really a good girl. At this point Jinping took this painting and tore it up. He said that he could prove that it was a fake because he had seen this painting with his own eyes in Mr. Cheng's house. Lin was very curious what would happen next. Qing was very angry at Jinping and he told her that it is accepted, having seen a fake it should be destroyed. Lin hugged Qing and asked not to be angry as he wants to solve this problem himself. He walked up to Jinping and said wants to give him bad news and exclaimed that from now on he is fired from Baba. Jinping laughed and said, who is he to announce such news? Lin said that he owns 20% of Baba and asked if he had the right to talk about it. Qing told Lin that now is not the time to joke, because Jinping is not that scary. Lin asked her, if it is true after all, he will allow him to admire her tonight. She wondered, how does he find time to tease her in this situation? Lin turned to Jinping and told him to call CEO Qing Shuang to tell the whole truth. Jinping said he would gladly call him and put the conversation on speakerphone to expose him. He called him and asked if he knew a man named Lin. Qing wondered if he had met him and told him to take good care of Mr. Lin, because he owns 21% of his company, otherwise he would be fired. But Lin said he owned 20% of the shares. Maybe he had met someone with a similar last name. Qing answered him that he gave Mr. Lin a picture of Peach Spring and he gave him 1% of the shares. Jinping couldn't believe it. He realized that his good life was over. In terror he fell to his knees and smashed his phone. Lin told Jinping that he was fired because now everything has become known. Tianqin asked him not to be so harsh, because now they are at his grandfather's birthday party. His sister supported her, because he is a guy his girlfriend Qing and family ties do not mean anything to him. He said that all he has to do is ask Qing and he will definitely do anything for her, but he won't do anything for them. At this time Grandpa was holding a torn picture and he was very sad. Lin turned to Jinping and said that he had torn a picture worth 200 million yuan and asked how he would pay for it. Jinping begged him to give him a second chance, but Lin pushed him away and said, "An apology is fine, but then why do they need the police?" Jinping asked his girlfriend for help, because otherwise he would be finished, but Tianqin told him that she wouldn't help him pay his debt and broke up with him. He started to beg her, but Lin told him if he was a man he should get off his knees immediately because Tianqin is not worth it. Lin turned to his girlfriend's father and asked him to gather all the family members in a separate room, because he needs to tell them all something. After a few minutes in another room all the Qing family members gathered. The grandfather asked Lin what he wanted to talk to them about and why all the mystery. Lin said he wanted to talk about his granddaughter Tianqin. Tianqin told him to talk faster. He said she called his car yesterday and went to the Bandao Hotel, but Tianqin said she wanted to meet her other yesterday to play cards. But Lin laughed at her and asked if she bought adult toys to play cards too, with two dark-skinned guys. Tianqin stood in a stupor and told him to shut up. But Lin was not going to stop. He said he had some videos on his phone and he would send them to Qing's phone, because if she was having fun in the hotel room he wouldn't have any evidence, but she wanted to move the games to a public place. He showed the whole family the video of her being hugged by a strange guy. Grandpa was furious and exclaimed, "How dare she do that?" Tianqin started making excuses and crying. She said she went there to discuss business. But Grandpa didn't believe her and slapped her. He asked indignantly, what happened to the story about playing cards? Mom told Grandpa that her daughter could have just been set up. But Dad said it didn't look like a setup, because the video clearly showed Tianqin's face. Lin turned to the family member and said he didn't want to get involved in their family squabble and so he had to leave. Lin and Qing went outside. She thanked him for everything he had done for her and apologized for Jinping and for tearing up the painting. Lin jokingly told her that now she would have to take more orders to pay for the painting. He left and Qing wondered if he was just asking for more orders, because she expected him to ask for more. Lin was not upset about the situation that happened at Grandpa's birthday party because now he can take more orders and complete the task faster. At this time, a girl named Yuan was calling a cab, but a guy named Majui came to her and offered her a ride to school, because his father bought him a new BMW. She told him that she was not interested, because the car would come soon she ordered. But he grabbed her hand and said that it would be low for the first beauty of the university if she came by cab. At that moment Lin drove up to them and asked whose order was number 4389. She said in surprise that it was her order number, and she did not expect a sports car to come to her. Yuan got into the car and Majui asked her in surprise, how she could order such a car, but she told him to leave her alone. Yuan asked him why he works at Baba if he drives a sports car. Lin replied that it didn't matter, the main thing was to make money on his own. She admired him and called him very cool. They arrived at Saida University and she shyly asked him if he could add her on WeChat. Lin wondered, why would she do that? Yuan asked him if he believed in love at first sight. But he told her she was too naive. How could she know he wasn't a bad person? Suddenly Sun called him and asked if he could take her to work tomorrow. Lin calls her crazy, and asks if she found the $2 million to fix the car. Sun said her brother did it on purpose and so her family tested him this way. She told him he passed the test and now they are a couple. He yelled at her and told her to stop dreaming and if they don't pay compensation but he will sue them, and at this point he hung up. The next order of business was Xian. she did not expect to meet him again and was very surprised when she saw him again. He asked her why she needed to go on the driving range. Shin said there was an event at the driving range and she was lucky enough to get a chance to be there to film a live feed. She pulled out a small box of fresh fruit and asked him to keep his eyes on the road, and in the meantime she would feed him. They arrived at the China International Raceway, and he himself was curious about what was going on there today and told her he would go with her. Once inside, Sun saw two popular bloggers arguing. Lin asked her if she knew them. She said that the girl's name is Jen Yin and the guy's name is Sun Rui. They are two very popular bloggers. She decided to find out what's going on there. Xian asked him what happened. He told her that Jen wants to kick them out of here. But Jen said that she doesn't kick them out, she's the one in charge at the driving range because he doesn't want more than one blogger on the. Xian said there's plenty of room and the more bloggers the better. Jen and Sun argued more and she said she wouldn't let them shoot a live show with her. At that moment her assistant came and brought her pass and said Mr. Han is waiting for her inside. She happily took the pass and told them to get out of here. Xian was frightened because there were many of Mr. Han's people there. He got upset and said they had no other choice and had to leave. Suddenly Lin proudly told them to stay because they didn't come here for nothing. Ren got mad at him and asked him who he was anyway. She said he better not get involved with Mr. Han or things would end badly for him. Lin laughed back at her and told her to call him here. Xian tried to stop him, and said that they wouldn't be doing a live broadcast here, because there was no need. Lin exclaimed that he wouldn't leave it that easy, and he would guide them inside. Sun asked Xian, who is he and where is he from? Xian said she hardly knew him, but she trusted him and would go with him into fire and into water. Sun didn't know what to do and said he would go with them. Jen laughed evilly and said she would teach them a lesson now. They went out to the parking lot and Xian was shocked because there were cars like Pagani, Ferrari, Lamborghini and McLaren. Sun happily said if they could do a live show here they would become very popular. He asked Lin if he was sure they could do a live show here. Lin told them to start preparing, because with him no one would kick them out. A few minutes later Manager Haitao and Han walked past them. Ren told them they came here without any permission and Lin thought he was in charge. But at that moment Manager Haitao bowed to him and said he was glad to see him here. Han waved joyfully and asked, did he have some free time and come here? Jen asked them in awe, do they really know this man? Han called her stupid and said that Lin owned this driving range and how could they not know him? Lin asked Han, is this really his friend? She just talked dirty to him. Han angrily said she's not his girlfriend, he only called her to make it fun. He said he'd kick her outright. But Han angrily told her that Lin has a calm character, which means she is the problem and asked security to kick her out of the driving range. Han said in surprise that the streamer girl who came along with him looks pretty good, but her figure leaves something to be desired. He said he could introduce him to some elite escorts. Lin replied to him that if he himself needs the services of escorts, he should think about his life. Sun was surprised when he heard this, because he had never heard before anyone talk like this to Mr. Han. Han suggested that he drive a few laps on the new racetrack. Lin said he would have a hard time as he had improved his cornering skills. A few minutes later they arrived at the start and Han suggested a bet. 1 second is 100,000 yuan, and you have to drive 5 laps. Whoever is last in time will pay. Lin agreed to his terms. The girls started the countdown and after 3 seconds they started with incredible speed. After 8 minutes they did 5 laps and Lin was first. He did 5 laps in 7 minutes and 21 seconds and Han passed in 8 minutes and 12 seconds. Lin laughed at him and told him that he accepted defeat too quickly. Han called him a monster, because all this time he trained hard for several days, but still could not catch up with him. Han kept his word and gave him a check with the money. Lin told Haitao's manager that he had a scratch on his car and asked him to find someone to fix it and the money Han gave should be enough. Haitao said he would take a picture and contact the manufacturer and ask for a mechanical engineer from abroad to repair. Lin approached Xian and Sun and said they could take off their heirs if they needed help, that manager Haiten would help them, and said it was time for him to leave. Han friendly hugged him and jokingly asked him if he had decided to trade his streamer for his job as a driver. Lin said that he finds pleasure in it and offered to work together. But Han refused, because when he got out of the car some hot girls were screaming at him and he can't leave them. Lin told him that to them he is just a bag of money. He left the driving range and he had the last 3 orders left to complete the job. He decided to continue after lunch. Lin arrived at the place where he often had lunch, but unfortunately it was closed. He asked his aunt why she closed today since it had been so long since he had eaten her fried rice. She told him that Z had finished classes and she wanted to take her home and only then could she make him fried rice. Lin told her that he would pick up Z himself and then she would make him a meal. She thanked him for his trouble. A few minutes later Lin arrived at Zhonghai Middle School. He waited outside for 20 minutes, but Z never came out of school. He entered the school and asked the students if they had finished their lessons, that he was told that literally just recently the last class ended. Lin came to the 3rd grade classroom and suddenly saw a girl he first saw when he first got the Bandao Hotel, and he took her to the wedding. Her name was Gu. At this moment the parent yelled at Gu, because her son had deep scratches on his face, and since her son wants to start a career in the entertainment industry, these scars on his face put his future in danger. Z told her that her son was the first to get at her and she just defended herself from him, otherwise she wouldn't have touched him. Suddenly Lin came into the office and said that a guy with a face like that has no chance in the entertainment industry. Gu recognized him and didn't understand what he was doing here, but at that moment Z came up to him and he told her that he came to get her. He asked her what happened. Z showed him her clothes and told him that her classmate tore her clothes. Lin turned to the classmate's parent. He said that obviously her son is to blame for this situation, but she explained to him that if they don't pay compensation, she won't just let it go. Sue said her son started bullying her. She started yelling at her and said poor kids like her are meant to endure bullying. But Lin couldn't stand her words and slapped her. She said indignantly how dare he hit her. Lin said that what mother, what son. She started yelling at the teacher and said why the hell is she standing in one place and doing nothing? She said her husband works as a human resources manager in Zongkan and she will tell him to take the case to the legal department. Gu told her that she was at fault anyway and there was no point in her going to court, but the parents said it would be up to the court to decide who is to blame and who is not. Gu told Lin and Z that they can go and she will turn the case over to the school principal. They were about to leave, but at that moment father ran into the office and asked why his son was being hurt. He asked indignantly why teacher Gu did not do his duties. The son told his father that Lin had just hit his mother. The father told him to kneel down and ask for forgiveness, because his boss is Han and if he contacted him, he would not live more than a week. Suddenly Lin called Han and asked him why his human resources manager was threatening him. Han was surprised and said where did his company get such idiots. He said he would find out who the idiot was and be sure to clear it up. Father asked him who did he just call. Lin said that he just talked to his boss. But he didn't believe him and said that young people can only lie. After a minute Han called him and said how dare he provoke Lin, and told him that from now on he no longer works for his company. He got on his knees and promised to apologize to Lin and he can't fire him, because he recently took a loan to buy a house and a car, and if he is out of work then his life will be over. He felt sorry for him and transferred him to the African department and now he has to go to Africa. He sat on his knees and did not know what to say. His wife asked him, what happened to him? He said that Lin really knew Han, and because of that he just got fired. He begged him to give him a second chance so that Mr. Han wouldn't fire him. But Lin kicked him and said, lucky he was here, Otherwise he couldn't imagine what Z and Aunt Lu would have done in this situation. After a while Lin and Z went back to Aunt Lu, and she wanted to tell her everything, but Lin asked her not to talk about the situation at school. At night Lin went to Chaoyang Company where Qing worked, because it was late and she was still at work. He went into her director's office, and thought, because everyone in the company has long left and she is still working, doesn't she know that working hard is very dangerous? Lin decided to joke on her and he stealthily kicked a chair. She was really scared and didn't understand what had just happened. She slammed the door and called Lin. She asked him to come to her company urgently and pick her up, but Lin said he couldn't pick her up today because he had a lot to do. She was really scared and started crying and asked him to come to her. At that moment someone started knocking loudly on her door. Qing got even more scared and said that her boyfriend was coming here soon and they would be in big trouble. Suddenly the door opened and she saw Lin. She hugged him and told him that someone just scared her a lot. But Qing realized that he couldn't have come so quickly, because she called him seconds ago. She told him why he scared her so much. Lin replied that he did it to make her realize that staying late at work was very dangerous. Qing asked him not to do that again and asked him what was in his hands. He said it was fried rice and egg. Even though he bought it at a small noodle shop, he had often eaten it there in the past few years, and he bought it for her to try. Qing opened the dish and was greatly surprised. She asked, did he really buy it from Aunt Lu? Lin asked her, how does she know her? She replied that she never eats in such places, but Aunt Lu has the most delicious food. Qing wondered, because just now he scared her and now he wants to feed her. Lin asked, what's the big deal? After all, others can't imagine that their big company director Chaoyang is acting like a spoiled child. He started spoon-feeding her and told her to finish and then he would take her home. Qing fell in love with him, because the guys who were courting her earlier were usually at nightclubs at this time, and at this time Lin feeds her and takes her home from work. Unexpectedly he got a call from Han and told him that he solved the problem with the manager and invited him to have fun with the girls, and said that he now has some of the best girls around him and their face and figure is top. Lin answered him that he now has the best girl around him, but Han didn't believe him and asked to take her picture, because if it was true, then he would do a live show where he would eat up. Lin asked Qing if she wanted a picture. Qing asked, why would he do that? He said that someone invited him to have fun, saying that all the beautiful girls around him, and he wants to send him pictures of her, so he knows what real beauty is. She was embarrassed and asked if she could change her dress or makeup. But he hugged her and said she would be the best even without makeup. Lin told her that she had nothing to fear and asked her to sit closer to him. Qing said she had never been photographed with guys before and didn't know what the best pose to take. Suddenly he picked her up and put her on his lap. He sent this picture to Han and he asked him where he found such a pretty girl. After a while they went outside and Lin asked her not to order and he would just take her home, but she said she wanted to support him no matter what he was doing. He looked into her eyes and said how could he refuse such a princess. They got in the car and he asked her what he needed to do to start a charitable foundation. Qing said that in order to start such a non-profit organization, it's hard for even a very powerful person to set up, and it would be hard for him to do it alone. Lin said he understood all her concerns, but he didn't care, because he just wanted to do. He said he needed her help, because Qing had rented 2 buildings at low cost to guest workers before. Qing replied that she would help him and find out everything. After a while he brought her home and asked her to go with him to Yanqing tomorrow. She said she would think about it since she didn't have much free time, then she asked him to be careful on the road. Qing gave him 5 stars and Wei happily informed him that the mission and career was 100% complete and a new career was now available to him. She asked him if he wanted to start a new career. He decisively clicked Start Career. Wei told him, welcome to the PE Teacher Career Experience Workshop. Lin received 500 million yuan and a mixture to improve all attributes and mind of a sage. He thought, said that a career as a PE teacher would be too easy for him. Wei asked him to drink the mixture and he would understand not only sports but also higher math. Lin wondered why a PE teacher needs higher math. She handed him a mixture and said that it contains the wisdom of the best scientists in the world. It will help him to adapt faster to the profession of physical education teacher. He asked her, but why does a PE teacher need so much wisdom, and then he drank the mixture. Wei joyfully announced the beginning of his new career. At this point he gained knowledge of foreign languages, physics, higher mathematics and others. Wei said that he should find that his body has also changed. This is the effect of the improved attributes. He looked under his shirt and saw that his body was even more pumped and muscular. With joy he hugged Wei and was incredibly happy. After a while he returned home and he was happy that he had completed his first mission. At this point he got a call from Hideout's manager and said that they had managed to contact the Pagani engineers. Lin was surprised and said that he would ask the servants to help him poison his car to them. Then Qing texted him and said that she could not go to Yanqing tomorrow, but she had booked a plane ticket for 10 in the morning. Qing asked him the name of his orphanage. He wrote her the name, Blue Sky, and asked why she wanted it. Qing wrote that she was just asking and jokingly wrote not to cheat on her. Lin arrived at the airport. As it turned out, Qing had booked him a first-class ticket. When he got on the plane, at that moment two beautiful girls and a guy came. The girl on the left was named Yuyang and the girl on the right Feng Xin. They were surprised when they saw Lin, because they had flown first class several times, but it was the first time they met such a handsome guy. The guy was named Fei Haoyu. Told them that there are a lot of boys with handsome faces, but no rich ones among them. Lin heard this and told him to shut up and to keep his opinion to himself. He sat down next to him and said that he was right and money is more important than looks. Haoyu offered to check this by asking the stewardess WeChat, and so they will check who she gives it to. He called the stewardess and she asked them how she can help them. Haoyu told her that he and his buddy want to ask her for WeChat, but she can only choose one. The stewardess wondered, because she had heard about finding a rich guy in first class before. She wondered if she was lucky, but she told him that according to airline rules she can't add WeChat passengers. He told her that it's not a problem, because according to airline rules, a passenger's request can't be denied so easily. She saw his expensive watch, but at that moment she looked at Lin and saw his Patek Philippe watch worth over 10 million yuan. The flight attendant asked him for his WeChat ID and said she would be happy to add it. Feng Xin said it seems her brother's theory doesn't work anymore, but Feng Haoyu didn't understand how that was possible. He asked the stewardess, how long has she worked here? She replied that literally today she transferred to first class. Suddenly his sister told him to look at the girl who had just entered the plane. It was Qing. When Haoyu saw her he could not say a word. Lin suggested he bet again. Haoyu said that if he lost again he would recognize him as the best. Qing walked up to them and told Lin to let her through, because the window seat is hers. At that moment Haoyu unsurely told her that he and the guy across from him want to add her WeChat. Suddenly Lin hugged her and told him that he had no chance with such an excellent girl. Haoyu was shocked at his actions, and nervously asked what the hell is he doing. But Lin looked into Qing's eyes and said that he has a superpower and can make someone fall in love with him in a second. Haoyu told him not to get cocky. He told Qing that she could call the police and they would all witness. Qing was very uncomfortable and asked him to stop because there were a lot of people on the plane, but Lin said he wasn't doing anything, and the plane was just too stuffy and he wanted some fresh air. But she repeated to him that she was very embarrassed, because there were a lot of people around them. Lin asked Haoyu, and who was the best? Haoyu, perplexed, admitted his defeat and called him the best. Lin asked Qing how she ended up here, because she told him she had a lot to do. She laughed and said she tricked him, and she had a free day today so she can fly with him to the orphanage. Haoyu was angry with him, because if it wasn't for him, He could have been in his place and sat with this gorgeous girl. Nurse told him that she wanted to take WeChat from Lin. He was furious, asking her, why does she need this loser WeChat? At this point, Lin nervously asked him, who did he just call a loser? How you said he didn't know him, but he was clearly a common Alphonse. He asked him, who is he if not a loser? Lin hugged Qing tightly and said it was love at first sight and he was going to marry her. Qing was uncomfortable and asked not to hug her so tightly. But Lin told her it would make her feel softer and sleep faster. She told him that she needed to go to the bathroom because all her clothes were wrinkled. Lin whispered to her that in that case he would go with her. A few hours later they flew to Yancheng and came to her foster mother's house. Qing said that although the price of housing in Yancheng is not high but the cost of a plot in the area is tens of millions, Lin said that's why he thinks mom is pretty stupid. After all, she could live in a good wealth, but she sticks to her principles to the last, and her clothes cost no more than 100 yuan. When they entered the yard, he was recognized by many children and Qing told them that she had lots of sweets and asked them to share among themselves. Wang saw him and asked why he hadn't warned her about his arrival, since she would have made him his favorite dishes. He said he didn't want to alarm them and so he didn't say anything. Wang saw Qing and said it was a wonderful surprise that he had brought his girlfriend to them. Qing said hello to her uncle and aunt and introduced herself to them. Wang told her that she was very pretty, and asked her not to bring anything next time, because she was a future member of their family. She asked her husband to give gifts to the children, and she would take the guests home. But unexpectedly he told her to come over to him quickly, because Ningyue had brought her boyfriend. Wang was happy about this coincidence, because two brought their mates at once on the same day. Qing asked in surprise who Ningyue was. Lin told her that she also grew up in an orphanage, but her university was in Yangcheng and his in Zhongzhai. They also decided to watch them. As it turned out they came in his new car. Ninu brought sweets for the kids. Suddenly the kids walked up to the new car and he really didn't like it. He shouted at them enraged to get away from his BMW, otherwise they would have to wash it. Ninu was surprised when she saw Linha asked to introduce his girlfriend to her. Qing introduced herself and said that Lin had already had time to tell about her. Ningyue took her hand and said that she was very pretty, also she and Lin were very suitable for each. Tao introduced himself to her and extended his hand to say hello, but at that moment Lin slapped his palm and said that now they were not strangers and could do without handshakes. Wang thought unhappily, how could a creature without parents find such an excellent girlfriend? Suddenly he turned to Wang and said he was going to donate 100,000 yuan for the orphanage, but Wang told him that there was no need for that since he had already bought them many gifts. But Lin answered her, if you give, you should take. Wang turned to Lin. He said he had heard that he had made a lot of money in Zhonghai and asked him if he wanted to donate money to the orphanage. Lin said he was right, and he was going to donate 100 million yuan. Tao was shocked when he heard such a large amount of money. He told him to stop joking, because this is only possible in dreams. Wang told Lin not to say such things, and offered to go eat. At this point Tao exclaimed to him, if Lin working as a cab driver at Baba can donate 100 million yuan, that case he would donate 10 times more. Lin agreed to his proposal. Lin called his bank and said that he would send them the card number and they would transfer 100 million yuan to it. In a few minutes her mother's phone received a notification that she had been transferred 100 million yuan. She could not believe it. Tao indignantly exclaimed that this could not be, and how could a Baba driver have such big money? Suddenly he took Wang's phone to check it and he saw a message from the bank transferring 100 million yuan. Lin told him that he had kept his promise, and he asked Tao when his donation would now arrive. Tao didn't know what to tell him, as he was sure Lin didn't have that kind of money. Lin asked him why the hell he didn't say anything. He had a lot of money, but Tao got confused and ran to the car and said he had some urgent business. He left and Ningyue tried to stop him, but Lin told her, let him go because Tao is a bad person, and she would be better off without him. Wang asked him where he got such money and how did he earn it. Lin told her that he started a small business and she had nothing to worry about. But Qing said Lin was just being modest, and he had some big projects in Zhonghai. Wang didn't know what to do with the 100 million yuan and she asked his account for her to transfer the money to him so he could use it in his business. Lin hugged her and told her to keep the money. He said he hadn't eaten all day and suggested everyone come inside and then he would go about his business. Wang said he cooked him beef. Qing asked him what his business was, and she wanted to go to the branch in Yancheng because she's probably having trouble with the bills there, and if they can go together. Lin told her that most likely everyone already knew she was in town and had specially prepared for her arrival. Qing asked not to worry about it, because no one knows that she's already here. After a while they ate and Lin told his mother that it was time for them to go about their business. But suddenly Qing spilled tea on herself and said that now she needed to change. Lin and Qing went into the bathroom to have Qing change, but her lock was stuck and she asked him for help. He saw her back and asked, can't she wear her sweatshirt like this? She asked in surprise, don't guys like to do things like that? But Lin answered her that he likes to take his dresses off rather than put them on. Suddenly the lock on the clothes stopped moving. He told her that he would now bring scissors. Qing wondered why he needed scissors because he could ruin her clothes that way. Lin said that her panties had come apart and the thread was caught in the zipper and it couldn't be taken out without cutting the thread. 30 minutes later they arrived at her company's branch in this city. They entered the meeting room and Zheng was very scared. He wondered why she hadn't warned him about her visit. After all, he is the vice president of the Chaoyang branch. Qing said she didn't see the need for it, and told him to bring her this year's report to the meeting room. 10 minutes later he brought her all the financial documentation and he started to read it. She started to yell at him because the company has a debt of more than 30 million yuan, and there are problems with other accounts. Qing took out her phone and wanted to call the police. But at that moment armed thugs burst into their company. Qing was puzzled and asked them who they were. She was told that they had come for money because Vice President Zhao owed them 1 million yuan. He started demanding money from them or he would kill them. Their ringleader told Qing that she looked very good and he was willing to forgive their debt if she would spend one night with him. Lin stood up for her and said that something told him that Qing didn't owe them anything, and he sent them here himself so that Qing wouldn't call the police. He asked them if 2 million yuan would be enough for them to take Qing to the police. The bandits were shocked, they only wanted money and agreed to his offer. He told them then why the hell are they standing still, because they need to catch Qing, and at that moment they ran to catch him. Qing asked him, what should they do now? Lin told her to deal with the financial reports and he would go and write a statement. After a while they arrived at the police station and he told her that they needed to act quietly and not let this case become known to the public. Because if it was published in the newspaper, the market value of her company would drop. He told her that she could go and in the meantime he would deal with her vice president Zheng, but Qing didn't want to let him go, because it was too dangerous. Lin gave her some file folders and said he had everything under control and she should go to the station first, because if he didn't catch the criminal, things would be bad. 3 hours later he returned to the station and he brought Zheng. Qing was very happy, and he said that now he should be turned over to the police and the court. Zheng was very frightened. He begged her to forgive him, because he could have given her back all the money, his house and car. Qing told him to shut up, because now this case will be handled by the court, and only the court will decide what to do with him. She hugged Lin, and said that all business was over. She offered to say goodbye to his mother and then returned to Zhonghai. A few hours later they arrived in Yunchuish. Said she wanted to cook him dinner as a thank you. Lin was surprised because he didn't even know she could cook. 40 minutes later she cooked him steaks and offered to try it. He tried it and liked it very much. He had no idea that Qing cooked so good. Lin said he heard her talking on the phone. He asked how was the situation with Qing. Qing said if nothing happens, all the evidence will go to court tomorrow. He told her that he didn't expect her to be so good at cooking, because now he should treat her like a princess and encourage her somehow. Qing said that she didn't need anything, because he already helped her with the company. Lin replied that it didn't matter. She asked him not to be so mysterious. Suddenly he kissed her and took her in his arms. She looked into his eyes and shyly asked, is he encouraging her or she him? But she said that it didn't matter, because the most important thing was that he was happy. Then he hugged her even tighter and turned off the light in the room.